November 14th, 1889, 5:47 p.m., Copper Ridge, Montana Territory, 23 degrees. Fahrenheit and falling. Eleanor Pritchard stood at her kitchen window watching 12 men trudge up the mountain path toward the Blackwood Mine. She could see their oil lanterns bobbing through the pine trees, 12 yellow points of light moving steadily upward into the gathering darkness. Her husband Thomas was the fourth man in line. She'd kissed him goodbye 20 minutes earlier, just as she had done hundreds of times before. She would never see him alive again. What Eleanor Pritchard didn't know, what none of the 300 souls in Copper Ridge could have possibly imagined, was that those 12 men were about to break through to something that had been sealed beneath that mountain for longer than human memory could reach. Something that had been waiting in the absolute darkness, something they were about to wake up. 12 men entered the Blackwood Mine that night. By midnight, 11 were dead. One escaped, but he would never sleep in darkness again. He would die 65 years later in a psychiatric facility, screaming about voices that only he could hear. The 12th man, the mine's owner, Samuel Blackwood, was never found, not his body, not even a trace, as if the mountain had simply swallowed him whole. This is the story of the Blackwood Mine massacre, a mystery that has never been solved, a tragedy that still echoes through Montana today, 136 years later. Because some doors, once open, can never be closed again. Copper Ridge, Montana appeared almost overnight in 1869 when gold was discovered in a creek bed running through a narrow valley. Within a year, 300 people had settled there. 2 saloons, a general store, a boarding house, and a Methodist church that doubled as a schoolhouse. Life was brutal. Winters hit 40 below zero. Men died regularly in accidents, fights, disease. But there was gold. Not California gold rush quantities, but enough to keep families hoping. By 1889, the easy gold was gone. What remained was underground, in hard rock mines that required serious capital and serious risk. That's where Samuel Blackwood came in. Samuel Blackwood arrived in spring 1887. Nobody knew where he came from. He was 40 years old, weathered, hardened. He had money, enough to file a claim and hire miners. Within 2 months, he discovered what would become the Blackwood Mine, located on the eastern slope of a mountain the local Salish people called Nulla Quaspitquo, the place where the earth dreams. The Salish avoided that mountain. They had for generations. They had stories about people who went into certain caves and never came out, stories about lights seen deep inside the mountain, stories about voices coming from underground. In 1887, a Salish elder named Two Clouds tried to warn Samuel Blackwood. A frontier surveyor recorded what he said. "The mountain has a mouth that breathes in but never breathes out. Our ancestors sealed the deepest caves with stones and warnings. They said there are old ones beneath, older than our people, older than the buffalo. They sleep, but they can wake. And when they wake, they are hungry." Samuel Blackwood thanked him politely and went back to work. The mine was profitable. Blackwood paid his workers well, $2 a day. But according to the men who worked for him, he was obsessed with something beyond profit. He was searching for something specific. Patrick O'Sullivan, one of the miners who would die on November 14th, wrote to his brother a month before his death. "The boss is a strange one. He's got us following this vein deeper than makes sense. He talks about what lies beneath and the old workings, says he found something in a book about ancient mines dug by people who came before the Indians. By October 1889, the Blackwood Mine had reached 780 feet deep. Blackwood believed they were close to what he called the mother lode. He was right. They were close to something. But it wasn't gold. Before we descend into that mine, you need to know who these men were. Samuel Blackwood, 42, mine owner, unmarried, lived alone. His room contained over 60 books on geology, mining, and strangely, ancient history. He kept a detailed journal that would become one of the most disturbing pieces of evidence. Thomas Pritchard, 38, married to Eleanor, father to 6-year-old Margaret. Civil War veteran, survived Gettysburg. A quiet, reliable man who sang to his daughter every night. Jack Hollis, 34, engaged to schoolteacher Mary Catherine Brennan. Wedding scheduled for December 7th. She'd already made her dress. After his death, she never married and never spoke his name again for 57 years. Michael Brennan, 22, a boxer. Strong, confident, feared nothing, protective of his younger brother Thomas, and Thomas Brennan, 19 years old, the youngest, 3 weeks on the job, the one who would survive, the one who would carry what he witnessed for 65 haunted years. 7 others died that night: Robert Chen, Patrick O'Sullivan, James Henderson, William Darkwater, half Salish, who'd tried to quit twice saying the mine felt wrong, Gustav Johansson, David Mitchell, Henry Blackwood, and Arthur Price. Fathers, sons, brothers, men with families and dreams. At 6:04 p.m. on November 14th, 1889, all 12 men stood at the mine entrance in the fading light and descending cold. Thomas Brennan was nervous, his first overnight shift, his first time at the deepest level. His brother Michael reassured him. "It's just like any other shift, Tommy. We'll be back for breakfast." Thomas Brennan would never eat breakfast with his brother again. The descent took 45 minutes down timber ladders and platforms to 780 feet below the surface. At the deepest level, several men commented on a sound Thomas Brennan later described as like breathing, but not human breathing. Like the mountain itself was drawing breath. At 7:15 p.m., the work began. Jack Hollis was lead driller. His job: drill holes in the rock face for black powder charges that would blast through to what Blackwood believed was a natural cavity containing rich gold deposits. For 3 hours, they drilled 9 holes, each 3.5 feet deep. At 10:27 p.m., Thomas Brennan packed the explosives. At 10:31 p.m., Samuel Blackwood lit the fuses. 5 minutes burn time. Move. Everyone back to the alcove. They ran. The blast was perfect. When they returned 20 minutes later, the rock face was shattered, and in the center of the broken granite, a hole, 3 feet in diameter, leading into absolute darkness. Jack Hollis approached it first, holding up his lantern. "It's a cavity, a big one. I can't see the walls or ceiling. Feels like a room." Thomas Brennan would later testify this was when he felt it for the first time, a sensation he called wrongness. The air that came out of that hole was old, air that had been trapped so long it had gone bad, and it was warm, body temperature warm, like it was coming from something alive. Samuel Blackwood stepped forward, enlarged the opening. For 45 minutes they widened the hole until a man could climb through. At 11:43 p.m., Samuel Blackwood went first. He held his lantern inside and froze. "My God," he whispered. Those were the last words anyone heard Samuel Blackwood speak. What happened in the next 17 minutes is known only from Thomas Brennan's testimony, given 3 days later in a state of near hysteria. This is what he said. "All 12 of us climbed into the cavity. It was enormous, ceiling so high we couldn't see it. The walls were carved, cut by tools. There were symbols on them that hurt to look at because they seemed to move in the lantern light. Mr. Blackwood stood in the center, writing frantically in his journal. He said the old ones, the threshold, it's all real. Then the temperature dropped. dropped like someone opened a door to January. I could see my breath crystallizing and falling like snow. And the sound started. Not voices, frequencies, vibrations, like the mountain making sound. My teeth hurt, my eyes hurt. That's when the lights started going out, one by one. Not the oil burning empty, they just went out. Starting with the ones farthest from the entrance. Men were shouting, someone praying, Gustav yelling for everyone to get back. In the darkness, I heard Mr. Blackwood scream, not fear, something else. And I heard them. The things in the dark, not footsteps, not breathing, movement. The sensation that something very large was moving around us in the darkness. My brother Michael grabbed my arm. Run, Tommy. Don't look back. We ran. Behind us, wet sounds, tearing sounds. The sounds men make when they die, but worse because there was something else. Something that sounded almost like laughter. Michael was ahead of me, 20 feet from the entrance hole. Then something grabbed him. I didn't see what, but I heard him cry out. I reached for him, caught his hand. For 3 seconds, I held my brother's hand while something pulled him back. His hand was wet. And then, it wasn't his hand anymore. The fingers changed under my grip, elongated. The bones shifted. I let go. God forgive me, I let go. I threw myself through that hole, fell 15 feet. Something in my ankle snapped. I crawled, stumbled, ran through those tunnels in absolute darkness. I found my way by touch and prayer. I could hear things behind me, following, whispering. They spoke English, but wrong. It said things about Michael, things about me. It took 40 minutes to reach the surface, 40 minutes while those things hunted me. I collapsed in the snow outside at 23 minutes past midnight. Sheriff William Corcoran was 53, a lawman for 27 years. He'd seen everything the frontier could throw at a man. Or so he thought. When he found Thomas Brennan at 2:10 a.m., the boy was unconscious in the snow 300 yards from the mine entrance, hands torn to shreds, ankle broken, face scratched, muttering words that made the sheriff's skin crawl. Dr. Raymond Hughes treated his injuries. Before the sedative took effect, Brennan grabbed Corcoran's coat. Don't go in there. They're waiting. They've been waiting for so long. By 4:47 a.m., Sheriff Corcoran led 8 armed men with 15 lanterns into the Blackwood Mine. Everything was wrong from the start. At 200 feet, they found Gustav's lantern still burning, carefully set down as if he'd meant to return. At 400 feet, Michael Brennan's pickaxe against the wall, its handle wet with something dark and iridescent that was still warm. At 780 feet, they found Arthur Price sitting against the tunnel wall 50 feet from the cavity entrance. Dead, no blood, no wounds, eyes open, staring at nothing. Dr. Hughes examined him. His heart has stopped, but there's no apparent cause. Then he noticed Price's eyes. The pupils dilated so extremely almost no iris was visible, and a cloudiness as if the fluid inside the eye had crystallized. It's as if he saw something so bright it burned his eyes from the inside, but we're 700 feet underground. At the cavity entrance, they found the other 10, arranged in a perfect circle around the opening, kneeling, heads bowed toward the center, hands on thighs like meditation. Lanterns aligned in front of them, all extinguished. All 10 men were dead. No blood, no wounds, no signs of struggle. Sheriff Corcoran's private journal, discovered after his death in 1912. 10 men arranged like they were praying to something in that hole. Not one mark on them. But their faces, every single one, frozen in an expression of transcendent terror. Not just fear, but fear mixed with awe. like they'd seen a truth so profound and horrible their minds couldn't contain it. When we shined lanterns into that cavity, we all felt it. Something aware, something watching. I will not send more men to their deaths. That entrance will be sealed. Some doors should never be opened. Dr. Hughes examined all 11 bodies. His official cause of death? Cardiac arrest due to extreme shock. But in a letter to a colleague, he was more honest. I cannot explain what I observed. Each heart simply stopped. But there were anomalies, the eye crystallization, hemorrhaging in their inner ears suggesting sound at frequencies beyond human tolerance. And one detail I cannot include in my official report because I fear being thought mad. Every man had the identical expression, not similar, identical, as if they'd all seen the exact same thing at the exact same moment and their faces had been shaped by that vision. Samuel Blackwood's body was never found. The rescue party searched every tunnel. They found his satchel near the cavity entrance. They found his journal lying open inside the cavity itself, though no one would enter to retrieve it. Samuel Blackwood had vanished as completely as if he'd never existed. The bodies were recovered at dawn on November 15th, 11 men laid in a row on the snow. Dr. Hughes performed autopsies. His findings defied medical explanation. The funerals were held November 18th, all 11 buried in Copper Ridge Cemetery in a semicircle where they could see the mountain that killed them. Eleanor Pritchard attended in silence, holding 6-year-old Margaret. She didn't speak for 3 days. Mary Catherine Brennan wore the wedding dress she'd made for her December 7th ceremony to Jack Hollis. She stood at his graveside, didn't cry, then taught her afternoon class as if nothing happened. She would teach for 31 more years and never marry. On November 17th, residents reported seeing lights inside the mine, not oil lanterns, pale blue lights pulsing with an irregular rhythm. Sheriff Corcoran investigated at dawn, found nothing, but he ordered the mine sealed immediately. For 2 days, 6 men built a double wall of mortared brick. Behind it, a timber door bound with iron. In front, an iron gate with chains and a padlock the size of a man's fist. A sign was posted, Blackwood Mine, closed by order, no entry under penalty of law, dangerous conditions. The sign didn't mention the 11 dead men. It didn't need to. Everyone knew. Thomas Brennan recovered physically. His ankle healed, though he limped the rest of his life. His hand scarred over, but he never recovered from what he saw. He left Copper Ridge in January 1890, moved to Missoula, worked as a clerk, never married, never went underground again, not even into basements. He slept with lamps burning in every room. In 1937, 48 years later, a reporter asked him for an interview. Brennan refused but said one thing: "I've spent 50 years trying to forget. But every November 14th, I remember every detail, and the worst part isn't the memory of my brother dying. The worst part is I can still hear them, in my dreams, in quiet moments. They know my name. They've always known my name. And they're still waiting." 3 months later, he was committed to Montana State Hospital, found wandering Missoula streets at 3 a.m., screaming about voices from beneath the ground. He spent 16 years in that institution. Staff noted he refused darkness. If lights were extinguished, he would scream until they returned. He died August 3rd, 1954, age 84. His last words: "They're calling. They're calling all of us down, one by one." Today, Copper Ridge, Montana still exists. Population 400. The cemetery where the 11 miners are buried is well maintained. Every November 14th, someone places fresh wildflowers on each grave, 12 bitterroot flowers on each. Nobody knows who. The tradition has continued for 136 years. The Blackwood Mine still stands on Sleeping Bear Mountain. The original seal deteriorated decades ago. In 1963, the Bureau of Land Management installed chain link fencing and warning signs, but locals know the real reason it's sealed. In 1972, University of Montana geology students received permission to map the mine. They lasted 3 days. Their official report noted unusual acoustic anomalies and equipment malfunction. Their unofficial report was more candid. Professor Richard Haugen wrote, "We recorded sounds our equipment cannot identify, frequencies below human hearing with patterns suggesting intelligence. On our second day at 6 p.m., all our lights failed simultaneously, complete darkness for 90 seconds. In that darkness, we all heard whispering in a language none recognized. And then, just before lights returned, we heard a name in perfect English, Thomas. None of us are named Thomas, but we later learned that was the survivor's name from 1889. Something in those deep workings is aware. It remembers." In 2003, 2 urban explorers cut through the fence and entered with video equipment. Their footage shows 7 minutes of exploration before abruptly cutting to black. In the last 30 seconds, you can hear whispering, distant, then closer, then crystal clear, a voice with a 19th century accent. "Welcome home." Both were hospitalized despite being underground less than 4 hours. Neither will discuss what happened. Both left Montana permanently within 6 months. Janet Whitmire runs Copper Ridge's only gas station. She'll tell you that on November 14th, and only November 14th, strange things happen. Compasses spin without stopping. Cell phones die in minutes. Animals refuse to go near the mountain. My grandfather told me you can hear them if you listen on the anniversary night. The men who died, still calling for help, still trying to find their way out of the dark. Martin Darkwater, great-great-grandson of William Darkwater, lives in Copper Ridge. He's a tour guide for historic Montana sites. He won't take anyone to the Blackwood Mine. My family has Salish stories going back before the white miners. They say that mountain is a prison. Something was sealed there long before our people arrived. The old ones knew. They put warnings. The miners in 1889 didn't break through to gold. They broke through a seal. They opened a door that should have stayed closed forever. What came through, it's still there, still waiting, still hungry. In 2019, the Montana Historical Society received federal funding to recover Samuel Blackwood's journal from the cavity, state-of-the-art equipment, modern safety protocols, 6 weeks of planning. They entered October 15th, 2019, reached the cavity entrance October 16th. They abandoned the project at 3:47 p.m. Official reason, structural instability. Dr. Sarah Chen, lead historian, admitted in a 2022 podcast, "The moment we started removing bricks from that seal, the temperature dropped 30 degrees in under a minute. Everything malfunctioned, cameras, lights, sensors. We heard something on the other side, moving, breathing. The sound engineer showed me his readings. Audio frequencies below 20 hertz, below human hearing. But the pattern wasn't random. It was structured, rhythmic, like speech in a frequency we're not meant to hear. We sealed it back up and left. Some historical artifacts aren't worth recovering. Some doors should stay closed. The journal remains in the cavity, unrecovered. Its secrets preserved by darkness and fear. So what really happened in the Blackwood Mine on November 14th, 1889? Was it toxic gas, a natural phenomenon science can't yet explain? Did they disturb something sacred, breaking a spiritual seal placed by people who understood dangers we've forgotten? Or did 12 men break through to something genuinely outside human understanding, something old, something aware, something that had been waiting in the absolute darkness for longer than we can imagine. 136 years later, we still don't know. We don't know what killed 11 men. We don't know where Samuel Blackwood went. We don't know what Thomas Brennan heard in the darkness that haunted him for 65 years. And we don't know what's still down there, 780 feet below Sleeping Bear Mountain, waiting in that sealed cavity. The graves in Copper Ridge Cemetery are well maintained. The flowers appear every November 14th. The mountain still stands, silent and patient. And somewhere deep beneath it, in the absolute darkness, something waits. The Salish Elder II clouds warned Samuel Blackwood in 1887. The mountain has a mouth that breathes in but never breathes out. On November 14th, 1889, the mountain breathed in 12 men. It breathed out only one, and the mountain has never exhaled the others. The people of Copper Ridge will tell you, if you ask quietly and respectfully, that on cold November nights when the wind is right, you can still hear them. 12 men calling from beneath the mountain, still searching for the way home, still waiting in the dark. This was the Blackwood Mine massacre, a tragedy that destroyed a community, a mystery that has never been solved, and a warning that perhaps some places, some depths, were never meant to be explored. What do you think really happened in the Blackwood Mine? Was it a natural disaster, a spiritual curse, or something beyond our understanding? Share your theories in the comments. If you want to hear more unsolved mysteries from America's frontier, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until then, stay curious and maybe stay out of abandoned mines.